Desperate Widow's heartwarming request revealed. Mountain Man's amazing proposal before sunset. As twilight deepened across the rugged Montana landscape, Sarah felt the weight of her choices pressing down on her. Standing on the weathered wooden porch of her family ranch, she could see the pastures stretching out before her, once vibrant, now fading into an echo of their former glory. Each evening, the horizon held a promise of new beginnings, yet Sarah's spirit hovered in the past. She could almost hear her late husband's laughter in the wind, a haunting reminder of the dreams they had woven together. Recently, Sarah had found herself crossing paths with Finn, the local mountain man, whose rugged good looks and honest smile seemed to breathe life into her bleak existence. Their conversations, initially casual greetings, had morphed into shared moments of laughter and understanding. It felt good to connect, to remember that warmth existed beyond grief. Yet, as their bond deepened, so did her internal turmoil. How could she allow herself to lean into something new when the shadows of her past were so potent? Just yesterday, Sarah had discovered a hidden family legacy left by her husband, a potential lifeline that could save the ranch from its slow decline. Yet this revelation carried a bittersweet taste. To access it, she would have to confront her husband's estranged brother, a man who had chosen to turn his back on the family when they needed him most. It felt like a betrayal to even consider it. Would she be risking her children's future for the sake of memories better left untouched? As these thoughts churned, she thought about Finn's recent proposal, a chance to intertwine their lives further. "Let's combine our strengths," he had offered. "We could create something special." The idea sent a thrilling shiver through her, but fear quickly extinguished that spark. Could she accept a partnership with Finn, knowing that she was still bound to a legacy that left her conflicted? Her friends warned her to tread lightly, concerned that her quest for reconciliation with her past could blind her to potential happiness. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As golden hues kissed the mountaintops, Sarah felt her heart race with the weight of uncertainty. Standing there, she could see Finn at the edge of the pasture, gazing toward her, waiting. A flicker of hope ignited, but it was paired with the crushing reality of what lay at stake. She was at a crossroads, with love and duty pulling at her heart. Every moment in the shimmering twilight seemed to echo a silent question. Could she embrace the promise of a new tomorrow, or would the tangled legacy of her past drag her back into the shadows of her grief? The landscape around her shimmered, yet the growing tension within her felt like a storm brewing. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, Sarah stood there, breathless, grappling with a decision that could shatter her world or mend it into something beautifully new. As the last light of day slipped beneath the horizon, Sarah felt a heaviness in her chest that shadowed the vibrancy of the lingering twilight. Finn's figure remained steadfast, framed by the silhouette of distant pines, his patience both grounding and unnerving. The idyllic beauty of the moment contrasted sharply with the turmoil within her, forcing her to confront what she truly desired against the backdrop of what she believed she owed to her past. With each breath, questions clawed at her resolve. Was it fair to potentially confound her children with the complexities of a new relationship? What if her late husband's brother intervened, provoking memories and grief at the most inopportune moment? Finn was a friendly shoulder, a new light shining through the cracks of her faded life, but embracing him felt like teetering on the edge of a precipice. Could she allow herself that chance? Wasn't she betraying her late husband by even contemplating a future that didn't include him? In her heart, whispers of self-doubt echoed louder than the sweet chirps of crickets and rustling leaves. But in that divide, something else flickered, a realization that perhaps she was more than just a widow. Perhaps she could bridge the two worlds with grace rather than guilt. Taking a deep breath, Sarah stepped off the porch, a deliberate action that felt like rousing herself from a slumber. Each footfall on the soft earth was a commitment to her own right to happiness. Finn's eyes met hers, a blend of understanding and quiet encouragement. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice steady, but her hands betraying a slight tremble. "About what you said, about combining our strengths." Excitement flickered in Finn's gaze, but he remained silent, allowing her to gather her thoughts. "I want to save this ranch.
I want to give my kids a life here, and I know that means confronting the past. She spoke with a firmness she hadn't felt in ages. The instinct to protect her family warred with the possibility of a fresh start, but she needed to prioritize. Sarah had always put others first, but doing so had left her fragmented, unfulfilled. Finn took a step closer, his presence warm and assuring. Whatever you decide, I'm here, but you can't let fear hold you back. You've got potential, Sarah, more than you realize. His words ignited a small flame of purpose within her, urging her to see herself differently.
Perhaps she could be more than a caretaker of memories. Maybe she could rebuild, redefine, and reignite a legacy that both honored her past and fueled her future. That night, as the stars began to dot the sky, Sarah ventured further into the path of possibilities. She called upon the memory of her husband, not only for closure, but as a foundation for strength. Deep inside, her regrets started morphing into resolutions. She briefly considered reaching out to her husband's brother, not to rekindle old wounds, but to mine the truth of that family legacy. This decision marked a vital turning point. It was a leap into the unknown, a confrontation with the barren remnants of her former life, yet it held a promise of potential. Empowered by her decision, Sarah realized this path might not only be for her children, but for herself. She would access her late husband's gifts, not as a burden, but as an instrument to carve out a new legacy. As she turned back toward Finn, the weight on her shoulders felt lighter. This was a new beginning, a reclamation of both herself and her future. She reached for his hand, ready to step forward together. Yet as the first stars twinkled bright, the dark shadow of her husband's brother loomed ominously in her mind. Would he be a bridge to her past or a barrier to her future? The pieces of her new life were falling into place, but the real challenge was just beginning. With the dawn breaking behind her, Sarah rose early, her mind swirling with the decisions she had made only hours before. The morning air was crisp, invigorating, but it did little to settle the knots of anxiety in her stomach. Today was different. Today she intended to face Kyle, her late husband's brother. The very thought made her pulse race, both from fear and anticipation. As she organized the kitchen, her hands moved efficiently, almost automatically, preparing breakfast for the children. Each clink of the dishes echoed like a ticking clock, a constant reminder of the time pressing forward, urging her to embrace this change. She hadn't noticed how stagnant her routine had become until the prospect of reconnecting with Kyle brought a shift in her energy. After breakfast, she sat down with her two kids, their eyes wide with curiosity. "You know how we talked about the ranch? How we'll always honor Dad?" she started, searching for the right words amid the scattered crumbs on the table. "I want to talk to Uncle Kyle about some things, about the ranch as well. Do you think that would be okay?" Her son Jake frowned slightly, and her daughter Lily tilted her head. They each shared a piece of their father with her, a sacred bond she treasured and cultivated. "But Mom, what if he doesn't want to?" Jake asked hesitantly, his youthful innocence unguarded. Taking a deep breath, she spoke softly. "I understand your concerns, but Uncle Kyle loved your dad and our ranch too. This could be a way to help us keep it alive." It was a small moment, but she was surprised by how well they absorbed her intentions. Once they affirmed her choice, Sarah felt as if a weight had shifted within her. Guided by her newfound resolve, she walked outside, the ranch sprawling before her like an uncharted territory, steeped in both nostalgia and opportunity. Finn approached, his expression a mix of support and concern. "You ready for this?" he asked, his body relaxed yet grounded. "I have to be," Sarah replied, meeting his gaze with determination. She cherished how Finn's presence not only inspired her to move forward, but also reminded her that she wasn't alone in this journey. Driving towards her late husband's brother's house, the scenery blurred and twisted with her racing thoughts. What would she say? What if Kyle resisted? A cocktail of memories threatened to tangle with her determination, memories of the support she used to lean on, now fraught with the complexities of grief and renewal. When she finally arrived at the familiar wooden cabin, she hesitated at the entrance. The echoes of laughter from family gatherings past rang in her ears as she knocked softly, heart pounding in anticipation. The door creaked open, revealing a solemn-looking Kyle. The moments of silence stretched, stretching the tension as he assessed her. Finally breaking the ice, she spoke first. "Kyle, thank you for meeting with me." "Sarah," he replied, his voice a low rumble. "I wasn't expecting you." She swallowed hard, her resolve faltering briefly as what she wanted to say hovered at the edge of her mind.
I wanted to talk about the ranch, she uttered, forcing the words out despite the heaviness. His expression softened, but the caution in his eyes remained. I hadn't thought much about it since. He trailed off, grief staining the silence. I need your help, she admitted, shifting her approach to be direct yet vulnerable. This place holds our family's history, and I believe it can continue if we work together. In that moment, as their shared past floated between them, Sarah realized this conversation could either rekindle familial ties or deepen the chasm of unspoken resentment. As she presented her vision for the ranch, she felt a pulse of uncertainty. Would he stand beside her, or would her outreach be met with resistance? The stakes were higher than she anticipated, intertwining every emotion she'd been managing since her husband's passing. But as Kyle's eyes began to reveal something, curiosity or perhaps recognition, she sensed the potential for a breakthrough, a chance to reclaim both her past and her future. Yet even as hope flickered within her, an unsettling feeling gnawed at her stomach. What if this meeting unraveled deeper family secrets? What if facing Kyle opened old wounds neither of them were ready to confront? The challenge of this new path loomed larger than she had prepared for, and its implications seemed endless, shrouded in uncertainty.
As the conversation unfolded, it was clear that their reunion might be less about the ranch and more a reckoning of lengths to which they might go to protect each other and themselves. Sarah felt the gravity of that thought as she braced herself for the unfolding dialogue filled with uncharted territories. The moment had arrived, but what lay at the end of this conversation? Just as quickly as her determination rose, a deeper conflict began to stir, prompting her to question everything she thought she knew about family legacy. And so, with her heart pounding, she waited for Kyle's first response, dreading and yearning in equal measure. Would this be a bond renewed, or a betrayal uncovered? Silence hung heavily in the air, fraught with unspoken words. Sarah shifted her weight from one foot to the other, acutely aware of Kyle's intense scrutiny. His brow furrowed as if wrestling with thoughts too complex for simple words. The familiar ache of loss lodged itself deep in her chest, urging her to push through the trepidation swirling between them. "What do you mean, work together?" Kyle finally muttered, his voice a mix of skepticism and curiosity, a wall precariously balanced against the tide of possibilities. "It's about the ranch," she explained, finding her footing as she drew strength from her purpose. "This land means everything to us. Dad poured his life into it, and I want our kids to grow up knowing its story and its potential. We can make it thrive again if we join forces, Kyle." He let out a tense breath, glancing over his shoulder as if weighing the landscape of their shared past against the unpredictable horizon of the future. "You're right," he acknowledged reluctantly. "It was our childhood, but I don't know if I can go back there yet." The admission struck her like a slap, and she felt the old wounds bleed anew, memories of laughter merging with their father's decisiveness, now overshadowed by grief and unresolved resentment. "You don't have to face all that immediately," she urged gently, pushing through her own vulnerability. "Just start small. Share your ideas. I need your input." Kyle's gaze hardened momentarily, as if the notion of collaboration threatened to expose the fragile state of their relationship. "And what if I have different ideas?" he countered, testing the waters. "What if I think you want to change everything?" "Nothing needs to change if it's not broken," she replied quickly, her heart racing at the potential for confrontation. "But it's at risk of breaking if we don't act. Look at it this way. We could turn this into something we both want, a place to honor Dad." The weight of her words hung heavily, the implications ricocheting across the divide between them. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. They were on the brink of a revelation that could either fortify their bond or fracture it irreparably. "How much have you thought this through?" Kyle asked, his sharp tone laced with both challenge and concern. Struggling to suppress the flurry of emotions igniting within her, she took a breath, constructing her response strategically. "I've done a lot of thinking. I'm talking to Finn about potential changes, and we've even considered bringing in some livestock again." Her voice steadied as she began to envision a pathway forward. "But I don't want to act without you. I need my brother-in-law, and the kids need their uncle." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Kyle's face, but so did something else. An inkling of hope, perhaps. "You think this can work?" he asked, almost incredulously. "I want to believe we can make it work," Sarah responded, the strength in her words building a bridge where there had once been trepidation. "We can honor our past while shaping a future for the next generation. It could be healing." Kyle's expression softened, and she noted the faintest crack in his armor. Yet somewhere beneath that cautious exterior danced the remnants of resentment. memories of their shared but divergent paths distinctly echoing. Moments passed, both moments and emotions spilling into an uneasy truce. Healing? He asked, or just another chance to bury everything else? Her heart sank at his words. Their connection had always been delicate. Let's not bury anything. Let's explore it, she urged, a flicker of determination igniting in her chest. You're more than a memory of Dad's brother. You're a key to this place, to our family. Let's not leave that behind. As she spoke, a new clarity surged through her. Kyle's resistance might be rooted in grief, but perhaps it was also fear of losing what he had left. It dawned on her then that faced with the discomfort of revealing their truths, they might emerge stronger or be rendered irreparably torn apart. Do you really believe we can rebuild this? He asked, voice steady yet still tinged with trepidation. I do, she replied, now fully aware that this conversation marked the true beginning of a new journey, one she hadn't expected, but alongside that excitement surged the anxiety of what they might unearth together. Just as Kyle opened his mouth to speak, the creak of the cabin door interrupted him, pulling their attention. The air shifted, bringing with it an unsettling realization that more awaited their confrontation than they understood. What else remained to be discussed? What other truths might surface as they unspooled their shared history? The path to healing felt both hopeful and perilous. As they stood on the precipice of reckoning, Sarah sensed the weight of battles not yet fought lingering ominously in the air. But would they embrace what lay ahead, or retreat once again into the shadows of the past? The unsettling silence promised a revelation that could alter everything. The cabin door swung wide, revealing Finn, his tall frame silhouetted against the golden light spilling from the setting sun. A rush of fresh air filled the room, lifting the heavy tension momentarily. Despite the warmth, a chill penetrated Sarah's resolve. The moment she had hoped would elicit partnership from Kyle felt precariously balanced on a knife's edge. Finn's arrival disrupted the fragile equilibrium, and she couldn't shake the feeling that new complications were imminent. Hey, what's going on? Finn asked, his voice light but cautious, sensing the undercurrent of emotion that crackled between the siblings. Just discussing the ranch, Sarah said, striving to inject normalcy into the conversation, her hands fidgeting anxiously by her sides. She could feel Kyle's gaze surveying Finn, as if searching for a judgment or validation in their shared struggle. Finn's brow furrowed as he took in the atmosphere. Sounds serious. You two all right? Kyle shifted uncomfortably, the defensive armor snapping back into place. We're just figuring things out. No big deal. Doesn't feel like no big deal, Finn pushed gently, glancing between them. Are you on the same page? I thought we were a team in this. The implied question of loyalty struck Sarah as a challenge, entangling her emotions further. Here was Finn, an outsider in many respects, yet he was pivotal to the ranch's revival. We're working on it, she said, forcing herself to remain calm, wrestling with the need to protect her brother-in-law's feelings while advocating for her own vision. Kyle clenched his jaw, his simmering temper becoming an almost tangible thing. Working on it implies a lot more than just talking, doesn't it? In that moment, Sarah realized they would need more than words alone. Action was essential, and she had to bridge the gulf between them. What if we set up some initial goals together, she suggested, catching both Finn's and Kyle's gaze. We draft a plan for the land, something we can all contribute to, each bringing our strengths. And if we can't agree on those strengths, Kyle replied, the skepticism in his tone weighing heavy. What then? Almost instinctively, Sarah sensed an opportunity. That's where we define our roles. I'll handle the livestock and day-to-day operations. You can focus on the financial side, funding, resources, new avenues, and Finn can help with marketing. She needed his buy-in. Let's put our differences aside to honor Dad's legacy and create something for our families. It won't just be about the ranch. It's about providing a stable haven for our children, a common ground. Looking directly at Kyle, she pressed on. What do you say? Kyle shifted, wrestling with her determination. You think that's enough to erase everything? The edge in his voice shook her resolve, but she held steady. Yes, because it's bigger than us, bigger than the past. Our kids don't have to face the same shadows we did. Finn broke the silence, a newfound resolve illuminating his expression. I think it could work, Kyle. We have the ability to turn this around. It's not just Sarah driving this. I believe you have something to give too. Kyle searched their faces, the residual walls of resentment slowly cracking. The hesitation in his stance spoke volumes. Perhaps fear and possibility danced too closely for comfort. After a few moments that felt like an eternity, his shoulders seemed to relax ever so slightly. "All right, I'll think about it, but I can't promise anything just yet." Sensing the weight of his concession, relief surged through Sarah, spurring her to push further. "That's all I need for now. Let's start with something small. We can meet up this weekend and brainstorm." But even as the words escaped her, another sense of unease settled in. Would their tentative agreement hold with old ghosts hovering in the periphery? What other old wounds lurked, ready to bleed when provoked? "Yes," Kyle finally admitted. "We can do that." They fell into a momentary silence, but Sarah's determination was laced with apprehension. It was a start, a fragile foothold in a cavernous divide. Yet in that uncertainty, she sensed a vein of potential. As they crafted their plans, she couldn't help but wonder what buried truths would arise once they began to dig deeper. Just as the light dimmed into twilight, the urgency of unearthing their shared history pressed down upon them. What would be revealed when they unraveled the story? Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that unearthing those hidden layers, like tilting the first shovel of soil, would bring new challenges to the surface alongside the possibility of growth. Would they be able to handle the discoveries to come? The future teetered between hope and unease as they stood at the threshold, unaware that the real confrontation had only just begun. As the last rays of sunlight slipped behind the horizon, Sarah felt an invigorating mix of fear and hope surge within her. They had reached a fragile understanding, yet the deeper conflicts lay just beneath the surface, waiting to erupt. With Kyle's tentative agreement to meet, she knew she had a brief window to seize the momentum and turn it into something tangible. Over the next few days, determination coursed through her veins like electricity. She spent hours researching sustainable farming techniques and agribusiness models, hoping to present a plan that ignited their passions. The more she learned, the more her confidence grew, battling the nagging doubts that shadowed her thoughts. Could she truly bridge the chasm between her and Kyle? Every new discovery about the ranch felt like a small victory, propelling her forward. On Friday afternoon, Sarah sat at the small kitchen table, surrounded by hastily drawn diagrams and notes. Each detail represented not just an operational strategy, but her vision, a revitalized ranch that honored her father's legacy while fostering unity and hope. She meticulously arranged everything into a comprehensive proposal, determined to impress both Kyle and Finn. That evening, the air was thick with the smell of rain as thunder rumbled in the distance.
Her heart raced where anticipation collided with apprehension. She wondered if Kyle would grasp how deeply she cared about the ranch, about restoring a sense of family. She imagined hosting gatherings where laughter echoed through the halls instead of the silence that had settled since their father's passing. Finn arrived a few minutes before Kyle, bringing a breath of fresh air with him. They shared a brief exchange, with Finn's easy smile reassuring her. "Feeling ready?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed casually. "More than ever," she replied, forcing a smile of her own as she shoved the last of her notes out of sight. The moment Kyle stepped into the cabin, however, her stomach knotted once again, his expression unreadable. "Hey," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "Let's get started," Sarah urged, her tone firm despite the nerves churning inside her. She spread her proposal across the table, each page a labor of love enveloped in vulnerability. As she explained her plan, she focused on transition points, weaving in her personal connection to the ranch and its legacy. She could see ripples of curiosity sneaking into Kyle's guarded demeanor, each flicker of interest giving her a sliver of hope. "And that's why I believe we can make this work," she concluded, her voice steady despite the tension coiling like a snake in the room. "I see us creating a space where our kids can grow up just like we did, connected to the land, to each other." Kyle hesitated, fingers brushing the proposals yet untouched. "You've put a lot into this," he said, a hint of disbelief mingling with admiration softened by the remnants of skepticism. "But changing the ranch requires changing how we see each other too." Finn interjected with a nod. "We're talking about collaboration here, not just logistics. We need to communicate, truly." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Could this be the beginning of real dialogue? Sarah believed it could be, feeling the edges of past grudges deepening yet again in Kyle's posture. His walls felt thinner, but the battleground of their shared history lingered ominously nearby. "I get that," Kyle finally said, frustration shifting his tone. "But it's not that easy. We've got a lot of baggage, and I'm not sure we can just sweep it under the rug." What if he was right? The very thought sent tremors of doubt through her resolve, but she couldn't back down now. "Then we sift through it, together."
Their eyes locked, and in that moment, a silent understanding formed. It wasn't just about the ranch anymore. It was about healing wounds that cut deeper than any fence line could divide. She felt the faintest crack in Kyle's armor, as if he was beginning to reconsider. But just as the silence grew heavier, a swift clap of thunder echoed in the distance, jolting them all back to reality. Would they be able to navigate through the storms of their past, or would the shadows they ran from continue to hold them hostage?
The tension crackled between them as uncertainty loomed, and it became undeniable that the rainstorm approaching was merely a reflection of the turmoil bubbling within. They had set things in motion, delving into uncharted waters, but where would the currents take them? Time was shifting. As they stood on the precipice of something new, uncertainty lingered in the air, just like the electricity before a storm. How would they confront the old ghosts waiting on the horizon? With the first drops of rain beginning to fall outside, the night was about to unveil truths that could alter their fates forever. The thunder outside rumbled like a distant drum, resonating with the tension in Sarah's heart as she locked eyes with Kyle. His doubt, reflected in the rawness of his expression, showed how fragile their connection still was. The thought of battling past grievances felt overwhelming, almost too daunting. Yet there was something electric in the air, a shared realization that change, however uncomfortable, was necessary. "What do you need from me?" Kyle's voice cut through the haze of uncertainty. He still held back a wall of skepticism, but curiosity edged closer to the surface. Her heart raced at his question, an opening she hadn't anticipated. "I need you to help me see a way forward for this place. If we work together, we can honor Dad's memory while building something new." The sincerity in her tone took her by surprise, as if the words had a life of their own, born from a place deeper than she had accessed before. Kyle's gaze drifted to the proposal spread before them, his fingers tracing over the diagrams she'd meticulously prepared. "I'm not sure I can do that." A pit formed in Sarah's stomach as her mind raced. What if he was truly incapable of looking beyond their history? The fear of failure, of being rejected yet again, tightened like a noose around her resolve. "But what if we tried?" she said, her voice rising slightly, hungry for connection. He looked away, the weight of their unspoken past weighing heavy on his shoulders. "Sarah, you have to understand, facing the old ghosts isn't just about words. It's about actions, about trust." Trust. The thought struck her deeply, igniting a flicker of determination. What if that's precisely what they needed to rebuild? A foundation of shared trust reimagined through their mutual heritage. The idea spiraled in her mind, a challenge that urged her to step beyond her current boundaries. "What if we took small steps?" Sarah proposed carefully. "Start with what we're willing to do right now. Maybe visit the fields together, talk about the past and what we can learn from it. Make trust actionable." Kyle hesitated, weighing her words. "You really think that can change anything?" Her answer came from a place imbued with newfound power, a realization that she'd known all along. "Yes, change starts with us. We can create a new narrative, one that defines our family's future instead of our past."
As she spoke, images filled her mind. Her children, their laughter echoing through the land, a bond strengthened by resilience. Finn, observing the back and forth, stepped forward, his voice steady. "What's keeping us from trying, Kyle? We've faced worse as siblings than a few uncomfortable truths." The challenge ignited something in Kyle's eyes, a flicker of willingness trapped between years of hurt and the hope of reconciliation. "You're right. I need to overcome this. We all do." The moment shimmered brightly with potential, and Sarah felt her heart surge as she noted the shift. They were beginning to peel away layers of mistrust. It took courage to confront their past, but she was ready to dive deeper, to let the exploration of their scars illuminate what lay ahead. Just as she contemplated their next step, the rumble of thunder shifted, echoing louder, harsher. The storm intensified outside, spraying rain against the windows like a sudden onslaught of memories desperately trying to break through. Her pulse quickened. What was the storm trying to tell her? "Let's go," she asserted, feeling a rush of adrenaline, bolstered by a sense of purpose. "Let's walk through the ranch now, see it with fresh eyes, and start this together. We owe it to ourselves, to this place." As they made their way outside, bold against the rain, Sarah felt a thrilling blend of fear and exhilaration. Change didn't wait for calm. It surged forward like the storm, wild and demanding. They stepped into the downpour together, a symbolic washing away of doubts. Would the rain douse forgotten dreams, or would it cultivate new beginnings? That remained unanswered, burgeoning hope versus the tempest of their shared history.
As they ventured towards the fields, shadows of the past loomed large, weaving through the droplets that fell around them. What truths awaited them in the heart of the storm? The world around Sarah blurred into a wash of gray as she stepped into the drenching rain, the cold droplets invigorating her senses. Each step towards the fields felt like a leap into the unknown, an opportunity to confront ghosts that had lingered over her family for too long. Kyle walked beside her, his brow deeply furrowed, a testament to the internal struggle he was facing. She could sense his hesitation, the all-too-familiar shadow of their past hanging thickly in the air. It both inspired and unnerved her. He was a mirror reflecting her own fears back at her. Could they truly navigate the treacherous waters of their shared history? As they crossed through the wet grass, Sarah felt the weight of her father's legacy behind them. This land wasn't just dirt and fields. It embodied their father's dreams, his failures, and all the shared laughter that had echoed through these hills. Walking here with Kyle felt like reopening an old wound, both exhilarating and painful. The storm raged above them, but for Sarah it became a catalyst, igniting determination.
"What do you remember most about the ranch when we were kids?" she asked, trying to stir memories that might bridge the gap between them. Kyle stared at the ground, his boots sinking slightly in the mud. "It wasn't always great," he replied, vulnerability creeping into his voice. "But I remember those rare moments, the three of us on a sunny day, racing around, carefree." "Exactly," Sarah urged, sensing a crack in his stoic facade. "We can find that again if we learn from what went wrong. We can redefine the space we shared." The rain cascaded down, mingling with quiet laughter that seemed to echo from their younger selves, a reminder of who they had been when life felt more whole. They reached the main field and paused, both absorbing the sight. It was a neglected expanse now, overgrown weeds struggling amidst patches of grass. But to Sarah, it shimmered with potential. "Imagine what we could grow here if we worked together," she said. "Not just crops, but trust, hope, our future." Kyle's gaze followed hers. He began to see it, not just weeds, but a canvas waiting to be transformed. "Can it really work?" he questioned, a mixture of skepticism and hope flirting at the edges of his voice. "It can," she affirmed with conviction, "and it starts with you and me. Let's make small promises today. We don't need to resolve everything at once." He finally turned to face her, a glimmer of understanding sparking in his eyes. "Okay, but it will take time. I'm willing to invest," she said, willing herself to hold his gaze, to infuse each word with the certainty she craved. "Let's carve out a new path, trust built on small actions, recognizing where we went wrong, but not letting it freeze us in place." The storm swirled around them with ferocity, as if challenging their commitment. Thunder rolled ominously, but Sarah pressed on, feeling a tide of determination wash over her. Their journey was just beginning, and both brothers were vital to it. "What about Mom?" Kyle suddenly asked, a frown tightening his mouth. "Can we really forgive her for her part in everything?" The question struck like a bolt of lightning, harsh and illuminating. Sarah had skirted around the subject, consciously avoiding it. "I think it's necessary for our healing. We can't fully rebuild trust without addressing those feelings." Kyle shifted uncomfortably. "I don't know if I can. It feels too raw." "Then let's take it step by step," she suggested, drawing from an inner well of strength that surprised even herself. "Let's revisit those memories too, together. It's not about absolving her, but about understanding. We'll break the cycle." Bolstered by both the intensity of the moment and the precision of her words, Sarah felt a new sense of clarity emerged. She was ready to tackle not just the ghosts of their past, but the questions echoing within herself. How could she confront her lingering resentment toward her mother? As the storm began to soften, she realized that healing wasn't simply a destination. It was a collective journey that required continuous effort. Deep within, she felt an urge to start documenting each step, to analyze her feelings in written form. Words had always been her refuge. Through them, perhaps a deeper understanding could bloom. Her heart beat steadily, the rhythm echoing her resolve. This was no longer just about salvaging a family legacy.
That way, we can see where the cracks are. He took a tentative step inside. The wooden floor creaked underfoot, echoing like memories she had kept caged. "And what about Mom?" he questioned, the weight of the subject settling over them like a shadow. "You think she's willing to face her side of everything?" "We won't know until we ask her," Sarah said, a firmer resolve gripping her decision. "But she deserves the opportunity to explain, just like we deserve to express how we feel." "Can I really do this?" he whispered, looking both terrified and inspired.
The truth in his eyes mirrored a similar uncertainty brewing within her. Will it be safe for us? Safe isn't a guarantee, but necessary growth often comes with discomfort. By taking these steps, we choose to step into the light rather than remaining in the dark. In that moment, she felt the familiar weight of doubt pressing against her heart, saying that this was too hard, that it would only lead to more pain. Can I do it? She thought. Will I let fear chain me down? I'm scared too, Sarah admitted, breaking her internal struggle. But the only way to find out if we can succeed is to commit. Together. Kyle inhaled deeply, and for an instant it seemed like a spark ignited between them. They were gripping onto each other's potential, however shaky it felt. As they began to brainstorm ideas for reviving the barn, transforming it into something symbolically rich, an idea struck Sarah with stark clarity. She envisioned not just the physical rebuilding, but creating a metaphorical foundation for their relationship as siblings. We could even start a calendar, mark little goals together, so we can track progress and not get overwhelmed. That could work, Kyle agreed, growing animated as possibilities danced between them. In the back of her mind, lingering regrets bubbled forth about the emotional conversations they still needed to have, the difficult memories yet to be unearthed. Yet within that discomfort, she felt a conquering force ignite. She wouldn't let it decide their future. Though the next days would unfold challenges they could not foresee, Sarah felt a momentum carrying them forward. We might not have all the answers yet, but what if we made it our mission to find them? She could hardly contain the excitement bubbling beneath the surface. Together, Kyle probed, and for a fleeting second, their past seemed less daunting, a terrain they were willing to traverse rather than shy away from. Together, she affirmed, a pulse of trust weaving into the fabric of their partnership. As they left the barn, a sense of calm washed over her, yet the nagging uncertainty of confronting their mother loomed large, a puzzle unsolved. What would her reaction be? Would she even welcome the confrontation? In the distance, dark clouds drifted once more, reflecting the brewing turmoil yet to unfold.
Just as a storm could foster the seeds of new growth, perhaps confronting the deep-seated wounds would lead them to the roots of healing they desperately sought. Sarah's heart raced with the possibilities. It was time to extend the invitation to their mother, a call that would either shatter the fragile peace they had begun to construct or lay the cracks for something profoundly new. Would this be the turning point they so desperately needed, or would it fracture their tentative bond? The answer was just a phone call away, and Sarah now felt the urgency gripping her, pulling her toward that inevitable moment of truth. As the sun rose over the Montana ranch, casting golden light over the dew-kissed fields, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose swell within her. The decision to confront her mother weighed heavily on her shoulders, yet in that moment of clarity, she recognized it as a pivotal step in reclaiming her family's legacy. The past was no longer just a tangled web of grief and resentment. It was an invitation to healing and understanding. Sarah gathered her children, each absorbing her growing determination. "We're stepping into something important today," she said firmly, the power of her conviction palpable in the air. Jake and Lily exchanged glances, their curiosity piqued by their mother's uncharacteristic resolve. Later that morning, with Finn by her side for moral support, Sarah approached her mother's doorstep. The old porch creaked underfoot, a reminder of the many summers spent playing beneath the sun, blissfully unaware of the turmoil that would later erupt. When her mother answered the door, surprise flickered across her face before morphing into a hesitant smile. "Sarah, what a surprise," she said, her tone cautious yet warm. "Mom, we need to talk," Sarah said, her voice steady, masking the storm of emotions cascading through her. They shuffled into the living room, a space filled with memories, old family photos lining the walls and remnants of laughter echoing in every corner. As Sarah absorbed these familiar sights, the old feelings of hurt surfaced, battling against her resolve. "Is everything okay?" her mother asked, sensing the weight of the moment. "No, Mom, it's not okay," Sarah replied, chasing away the temptation to soften her words. "I can't just ignore everything that's happened. We are trying to rebuild the ranch, but first we need to face the past." Her mother's posture stiffened slightly, the familiar tension rising as old wounds cracked open. I thought we moved past that," she stammered, the cracks in her facade shimmering. "This isn't just about moving past things. It's about understanding them," Sarah implored, channeling the courage she had summoned in the fields with Kyle. "Your choices impacted all of us.
I need to know why you distanced yourself from Kyle after Dad died. Silence stretched between them, alive with unspoken words.
After a long breath, her mother began, a tremor in her voice revealing vulnerability previously cloaked in defiance. I thought I was protecting you, keeping you from pain. I didn't know how to help him or you. With each word, Sarah's heart softened, and the anger from her past began to lose its grip. Mom, all the missing pieces, they matter. We need to acknowledge their existence, or we risk the same mistakes. Are you really willing to hear me out? Her mother asked, skepticism woven in her tone, yet an ember of hope flickered in her eyes. Yes, Sarah affirmed determinedly. For the sake of our family and our future, we need to heal together. Only then can we honor Dad's legacy. Minutes turned into hours as Sarah and her mother navigated the painful membrane connecting their shared history. They unearthed buried emotions, explored regrets, and acknowledged mistakes, moments where love had been overshadowed by grief and fear. As they peeled back these layers, Sarah found an unexpected flame of understanding igniting within her. It was a realization that no one was infallible. They could allow their past to shape them, not define them. With Finn quietly supporting their conversation, the power of their mutual vulnerability blossomed in the room. Days turned into weeks, but they continued this ritual of honesty, allowing it to transform into powerful dialogue around the dinner table, where laughter now echoed alongside reflective conversations. The ranch began to transform as well. Together they worked toward restoration, drawing closer through the shared labor and vision. At the month's end, Sarah stood on the porch, surveying the flourishing fields. Each blade of grass and sprouting vegetable represented the fruits of their labor and the reconciliation that had anchored their family anew. The landscape wasn't just visually vibrant, it pulsed with life and an underlying current of belonging. "Look at what we've built," Sarah said one evening as they gathered with Kyle. He chuckled, a lightness in his heart glowing brighter than Sarah had ever seen. There was safety in their connection, a bond fortified by the resolve to confront their shadows. "Why did we wait so long?" he mused. "Because sometimes healing takes a painful path to reveal its purpose," Sarah replied, nodding with understanding, "but it's worth every step." With her mother on one side and Kyle on the other, Sarah felt a deep sense of accomplishment wash over her. They had not just restored the ranch, they had rebuilt their family, honoring the past while forging a new future. Sarah felt more than just the pride of her efforts. She felt whole, connected to both her roots and her potential. As they stood together, the vibrant sky lit up with the hues of dusk, a fitting metaphor for their journey. They had conquered turmoil and hope with equal tenacity. "Let's promise to continue from here," Kyle suggested, eyes glimmering with sincerity. To always communicate, however difficult it may be. "Yes, let's honor both our struggles and our triumphs," Sarah replied, her heart swelling with gratitude and love. As the first stars began to twinkle, Sarah recognized that their journey would never cease. There would always be more to discuss, to grow into, to embrace collectively as a family. But they had the tools now, etched in their hearts with new confidence. In that moment, it crystallized within her. She was not merely a widow grieving a legacy. Sarah was a formidable force, a builder of relationships, a reconciler of past pains into future strengths. She had emerged from the shadows of loss into the warmth of connection, ready to embrace whatever awaited them. Now it was time to share her story with others, stirring inspiration and healing beyond the boundaries of her family. And as she surrendered to the horizon, one thought ruled her heart. There was unyielding power in true vulnerability and the courage to forge ahead. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep pushing these inspiring tales forward. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. We are all about overcoming together, and they deserve to witness true transformation.